This video is going to be a review on Phuket and the number of things I did not like on this trip. And I'm not gonna lie, it's been a pretty bad part of the trip. Not so much August, but September definitely a horrific part. We had a weather pattern. I'm sure you know that there have been floods in the US, in parts of Europe, all over the place, in the Far East as well. So Phuket was not a unique case, but I've never had to live through anything like this. So that was a negative part, but it's not the fault of the government or the businesses or the island itself. And I came back with food poisoning, and this is the first day that I'm even able to talk. I have posted a number of short format videos on the location where I am. I'm back in Bangkok, and on the whole trip driving back from Phuket to Bangkok on a VIP bus. Not as fancy as a European Mercedes bus would be, but pretty good, like an upscale sort of a Chinese bus. It cost me about 60 bucks, so it's a really cheap way to travel. And if you have learned to hate the airport, which I have, then this is just an easier way to travel within the same country, sometimes even into another country. You could take the bus into Malaysia or Cambodia, any number of different countries. So in any case, the food poisoning was bad, but it was really my fault. A lot of people suspect that the street food or the farmers markets are the source of danger. That's actually not the case. Every single time I got food poisoning, either here or in Costa Rica or anywhere else while traveling, it was because of a corporate place. So it was a corporate restaurant, and they routinely, first of all, they buy cheap stuff, but even if they don't handle it properly. It's not clean enough, it's not properly heated through. When you buy something on the street or at the market, especially in a country like the Siam, everything is cooked right in front of you, so it's totally heated through. Especially in the local cuisine, they like to heat it up, and so it's never a problem. It's really my fault. I'm not even blaming anybody else for it except the corporate guys. Now the footage I'm showing to you is something I took 2 or 3 days before takeoff from Phuket, and this was the first period that we even got some clearing after at least 3.5 weeks of virtually non-stop storms, rains, darkness. It was so depressing, and I was staying in this depressingly teeny tiny room. That was a surprise, in a really dilapidated hotel that I could not see on Airbnb. Now what I have in Bangkok, you can see the short format videos. It's way better. So let me go through the list of what I have learned to hate about Phuket. First of all, the old Phuket that was around 20 years ago when I first traveled here, or even 10 years ago, it's completely gone. It's gone. The nice endless little stalls of local mom and pop restaurants where you can get local seafood for a few dollars or next to nothing, those are gone. Everything is built in. They are building more and more condominiums and resorts. It's awful. At the same time, there are really only 2 air-conditioned malls in Patong, where I was staying, which is probably the most built-up place. So you can't escape from the heat as easily as you can in Bangkok. In Bangkok, so long that you are staying close to Sukhumvit or some major, most built-up inner city area, if you find that the hot weather is getting to you, you can always pull into some air-conditioned spot, which is not the case anywhere in Phuket, really. I mean, it's just a rural island. So, and also the convenience is there just isn't the kind of offering of either food or merchandise that you could get in Bangkok. Once again, it's just not so built up, but it's also not the cool, rustic, natural place that it once was. Second, there were assaults. I have never been assaulted in this country. I've been here dozens of times. There was an assault by some bodyguard go-go character, and then there was another one by a cop. I was waiting for the ability to cross the road, and this guy reaches out and pinches my stomach, and I was maybe a second away from swinging a fist at him just instinctively. But this was a cop dressed in a uniform, so it's kind of conflicting. You would want to shove him away at least, but how are you going to complain about an assault from a cop? Go to the police station? So I ended up without physical injury in both cases. I was able to de-escalate and to move out of the situation. But this has never happened before. Not in Phuket, not in Bangkok, really not anywhere. So this is number 2. Then there is number 3, the prices. Patong and pretty much all of the villages, all of the beach villages where the tourists typically go are now tourist traps. They were charging $5 for a scoop of Haagen-Dazs ice cream, $50 for a decent baseball cap, $20 for a polyester t-shirt. What a joke. I mean, compared to this, Manhattan is a discount place. So prices are out of control, and they pretty much know that the only thing you could do would be to take the bus into Phuket town and spend hours traveling, but that's no fun. And in Phuket town there are some more normal mainstream prices, and that's where a lot of the natives live that run the island, which is almost entirely a tourist economy. And here we come to the other point, taking the bus into Phuket town. You used to be able, even any time before the lockdown, you used to be able to just rent a scooter for $100 a month, maybe another $20 for maintenance, and it was never insured, so it was kind of always dicey, but at least the police did not bother you so long that you had a helmet on. A helmet for the driver, but not for the passenger. Passengers were never required to wear a helmet, but now everything has changed. There is a new law, and now you have to have an international driver license, which would take at least a day in Phuket town standing online. And especially if you're staying here on a 2-week-long vacation, how would you want to do this? It's just not something most people would do. Plus, why would you want to translate an English language driver license from the US or Australia into English? That makes no sense. It's just an administrative way of trying to milk the tourists, which is so stupid. The government is clearly struggling, just as they are all struggling around the world, because they locked down the economy for a year or two, and that's what has created a situation that cannot be fixed anytime soon. It's going to take years for economies to recover from this nonsense, which didn't even do anything good. Sweden, Mexico, Belarus, a number of places that did not lock down are actually doing better. So transit is really difficult. You can either rent a scooter and risk being pulled over, and I've seen cops pulling people over every other day, or you stand up, you take the bus or a taxi to Phuket town and spend the whole day standing online and doing the translation, taking pictures, all that nonsense, so that you could rent a 150cc scooter or a car. Now, there is also a cost to this transit. They do have some buses. The Phuket Smart Bus now costs about $3 for one trip, which is New York price. So it's nice to have it, but it's not going to take you everywhere, and it's going to have a New York price. So that's really not cool. Another thing that really bothered me was Patong especially, but some of the other places are getting overwhelmed by these fifth world halal people. They come from the Middle East. They have absolutely no respect to other cultures. They eat their own torture foods, the halal lamb and goat, and these animals that are crucified upside down and slowly bled to death, because the Old Testament says that blood delicacies like blood pudding and things that people don't even eat anymore are forbidden as penance to the followers of God and so on. And it's irrelevant at this point, and these procedures have never been described. I just find that this culture is repulsive. Not to mention that these people never ever show up at any of the local restaurants. They don't enjoy Thai cuisine. They don't even entertain with Thai or even European people. They have their own bars and clubs and everything where they can do their own thing. So they are a pretty arrogant, standoffish, and unpleasant people, to say the least. And then there is the overcrowding. Overcrowding is everywhere. Overdevelopment. There used to be these little pocket beaches where you could go, and if you had a scooter, which you used to be able to rent, you could access any of them quite easily. Today, even if you do rent something and you do go there, you'll find that more and more of them are being taken over by resorts. They are private. The only way to get to them is to stay at the resort. And even without that, everything is overcrowded. The roads, the villages, and they are not using traffic lights for the most part, which makes it extra risky to try to cross the road. For the most part, cars are remarkably polite and safe, but the same cannot be said of the locals riding motorized scooters. There are a lot of punks who are speeding, and even if the car is slowing down, some of them just try to blast across as the pedestrians are trying to cross the road. So it's getting to be more and more unnerving to do this. I was definitely the only tourist I saw in the entire 2 months that I was in Phuket who was on a bicycle. I bought a bicycle for $100 plus a pump and lock, so maybe $120 for 2 months. It's not a bad deal. But you cannot go very far because it's very hilly, so to go from one beach to the other is very difficult. It's great to zip around in your own village, and that's what I did, provided that the weather is clear enough. But other than that, there's not much you can do. Electric scooters cannot be rented yet. It's not built up to that point, unfortunately. There are crowds, but I think companies could make money if they were renting electric scooters, but they just haven't gotten to that yet. So I see a hole on the market that needs to be filled. And finally, the beaches. At this point, most of the cute, pristine beaches that are away from the crowd are privately owned and you cannot get in. And even if you can, those beaches are difficult to access, so you would really need a scooter. And that brings up the international driver license problem. So the pristine beaches are basically gone. You can only go to the mainstream beaches. And as you can see on this footage I took, this is Patong Beach at 7 a.m. Already by 7 a.m. it's kind of nicer than usual, but people are already on the beach. And by 9 a.m. it's as crowded as Grand Central Station in New York City during rush hour. And there are all kinds of power boats and parachutes and heaven knows what kind of games. So it's all insanely commercialized and insanely overcrowded. So what do I say about Phuket? There is still that heavenly Phuket that once was, but it's no longer available for people who just drop by to the island and want to spend $100 a night on an average hotel. You now have to go to an expensive upscale resort. And yes, the place has those amazing teeny tiny islands owned by a resort or two, and if you can afford at least $500 a night, at least $5,000 a month, then you could rent something absolutely beautiful on a heavenly beach. None of the crowds come near you because it's all private property. But on the other hand, in addition to being very expensive, you are logged in. You want to go anywhere, it's going to cost a lot of money. If you order anything locally, that's going to be overpriced as well. So you just have to accept that. So Phuket is at this point increasingly for the rich if you really want to enjoy it. Or you stay at the villages and stay with the fifth world halal and other really low class people who are no fun to be with. So I'm amazed I feel good enough to have been able to record this video. Finally, I want to do a short comparison between Phuket and either Costa Rica or Bonaire, which are my other places of interest. I would say for nature, like how well is nature protected? How much of a sort of an eco-tourist experience can you have? I would say for that, either Costa Rica or Bonaire, which is in the Dutch Antilles, would beat Phuket left and right. The only bird you see here on the beaches are pigeons and some very primitive marine birds. So the kind of colorful wildlife that you have in Costa Rica, which is one of the most eco-minded countries in the whole world, and one of my favorites definitely, especially after this trip. Phuket cannot compete with that. Bonaire, the Dutch protection of nature is also outstanding, but Bonaire is a desert island, so people go there for diving and snorkeling, not so much for there's exceptional aquatic life that you can observe if you have a diving mask, but on the island itself it's nothing but some cacti and aloe plants and rocks and sand. Basically it's a desert island. And here we come to the other aspect of it, diving and snorkeling. Does Phuket compare to Costa Rica or Bonaire? I think Bonaire is toweringly above both of them. You can have decent snorkeling and diving either in Phuket or Costa Rica if you take the boat out pretty far. In Bonaire, you literally just have to step into the water and you have unbelievable marine life. Even if you're on a boat, I have seen flying fish. It's just amazing what you see in Bonaire and how much the Dutch government has done to protect the coral reef. And they have flamingos and other things as well. So I would say because of the price of this thing, Phuket, which is now more expensive than most of Costa Rica or Bonaire, Phuket has fallen behind. And especially for somebody from North America, why would you fly this far out? I mean, it's a unique culture. I love the culture. I always have. And the cuisine is great. No question about it. But if you want to enjoy Thai cuisine, I would say Bangkok is a better place to do it. You have a far larger city, far more restaurants, far more competition. So the prices are lower and the variety is something a small island like Phuket cannot compete with. So that's my opinion of Phuket. I'm not discouraging you from visiting. If you do visit and stay in a village, at least stay away from Patong, because Patong at this point is a slum. I would say going either south or north of it would make more sense. North of it especially, the closer you go to the north but staying away from the airport area, the better it is. And finally, one positive thing, the visit to the dog sanctuary or animal sanctuary, for lack of a better term, was really the high point of my trip. I did not expect it to be so, but I've never seen something that presents itself as an animal shelter to be so upscale, so beautiful. And I understand that some people come on vacations just to hang out with the dogs, because any halfway decent person can volunteer and they let you borrow some dogs and walk them around the property, which is very charming, very beautiful, like a really nice park. And there is a grass, you can hang out with the dogs for hours if you want. Same thing with the cats, they have cats as well. So I guess if I did return and did not want to spend 500 a night on an expensive resort on a private island or a cliff, then I would probably go to somewhere to the north of Phuket, not too far from the airport, but not too close either.